Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. Oh, I've got a new setup. I've got a new phone, and I've set up all my thing a little bit differently. So, bear with me. There we go. You'll have to let me know what you think. Like I said in the last video I did, I was going to look at another story today. And it's called The Toy Box Killer. Yeah, it's how it sounds. It's awful. And it was actually a friend of mine who pointed this one out to me. I had kind of heard little bits about it, but some of the stuff this guy did was just mind-boggling. It really is. To the point where I don't even know if I can repeat half of the thing. Oh, it's just... His name's David Parker Ray, this toy box killer. He was born on November the 6th, 1939. So yeah, their age. And he lived in New Mexico in America. And although no bodies were ever found relating to this guy, it's suspected he killed up to 60 people. This guy did. He lived in Elephant Butte, it was called, in New Mexico. And it's 7 miles north of a town called Truth and Consequences. Actual proper town. More of a vagrancy town, so a lot of comings and goings, a lot of people travelling through, a lot of people kind of hiding, some not very nice characters hanging out there. But this is where David lived. And basically, with David, it was said that when he was a child, he wasn't physically or sexually abused. He was neglected. He was, but severely neglected. And it said that, one of the professionals on... I found this online. I haven't actually watched one of the normal programmes I usually mention to you. But what I watched online, it was showing it was from the CI channel. Now, I haven't seen it from that, but like I said, I did watch it online. And it was saying that people who are severely neglected, it can be even more dangerous to their psyche than someone even physically or sexually abused. And basically, he was just terribly neglected, and he lived with his grandparents. But his dad used to pop in every now and again. It was said not very often, but when he'd visit him, he'd bring young David Parker Ray sadomasochistic pornography. It was said that, the front of these magazines would have women tied up on it. He was a child, and that's what he was bringing his son. And it said it kind of moulded his opinion of women. Not only from that, but he was neglected by his mother, his grandmother. They didn't have any time for him, and it just says that it began this utter hatred of women. In a way, he went on to become an auto mechanic after he'd left the army, and basically, somehow, someway, David Parker Ray was married and divorced 4 times. Doesn't give a lot of mention about his wives, doesn't mention it at all, really, whether, his interest in sadomasochism was with them. Nothing's mentioned about that, but he has 2 children out of these marriages, and one of them, his daughter, is called Glenda Jean Jessie Ray. Jessie for short, so Jessie Ray. Now Jessie Ray, it was said she wasn't a very nice woman. Could handle herself, like to get in bar fights, etc. Just wasn't a very nice woman. Now, actually, David Parker Ray was only surrounded with dodgy people, I suppose you'd say. There was his daughter, for a start. Then there was a fella called Dennis Yancey. Now, Dennis, it was said that one year in this town, they had to cancel Halloween because him and his friends were going around and basically terrorising the town, harming animals, just being vile. And they actually had to cancel Halloween. And in America, that's huge. So not a very nice guy. And basically, how this begins is there was a lady called Cynthia Virgil. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And she finds herself drugged in this toy box on a table. And this toy box that I'm talking about, it's actually a trailer on David's land. You know, just a normal looking trailer, really. But when you go in, he's soundproofed it, and just all along the walls are just the worst type of sexual, just torture items that anyone had ever seen. There was, I'll just give you a little list: spreader bars, legs, whips, chains, surgical blades, saws, sex toys, ropes, pulleys, syringes. There was a mirrored ceiling so the victim could see what was being done to her. And there was also a wooden table. And this wooden table was a little bit confusing to some of the police when they found this toy box. And basically, like I say, I've gone off there. Cynthia, who woke up in this toy box, she obviously knew she'd been abused. She remembers being in a bar with Jesse, and also a lady by the name of Cindy. Now, Cindy Hendy is David's girlfriend. So there's actually 4 of them involved, and it's David Parker Ray, his daughter Jessie Ray, Cindy Hendy, who's his girlfriend, of not very long, and Dennis Yancey, who's a friend of all of them. They're just a vile group who've come together, just awful people. And Cindy and Jessie had convinced Cynthia to come back to her dad and boyfriend's house, obviously the two of them. And she realised she'd been drugged quite soon, and then she was beaten. And she's coming in and out of consciousness while this is going on. She realised she's been moved. She's raped, she's beaten, she's tied up, she's humiliated. And she also quotes that she heard a tape being played, and it was David Parker Ray just basically telling her what was going to happen to her. And now I've actually read the transcripts of this tape. The tape, it said, is 5 minutes long. You don't hear it on the show, but I have actually read it, and it's horrible. It's absolutely awful what he's saying to these. Obviously, this tape's getting played with any amount of women who've been drugged and brought back to the house, and it just describes what's going to be done to them. Do you remember the wooden table I mentioned earlier, the contraption? It was to bend the victim over so she could be sodomised by either David's friends or his 3 dogs. Yeah, I said that. That's what I said. And basically, Cynthia had gone through, apparently, you know, just the worst torture you could imagine. And on the 3rd morning, I believe, Ray goes off to work. David goes off to work. David Parker. So David goes off to work, and because he carried on working, he lived a very normal life while this was going on. They're in a retirement community. No one knew this was happening. And basically, while she's lying there, Cynthia sees these keys that have been carelessly, I suppose, left within her grasp. She gets hold of them, unties herself from the table, I believe. Now Cindy was in the house, heard a commotion, comes running, and apparently hits Cynthia over the head with a lamp. But Cynthia manages to get hold of an ice pick and stabs her. And it says she just stabs Cindy just enough so she can get away. So this poor woman is now running down the highway naked, apart from a collar and a 5-foot chain. It's just what horror films are made of. Even that, if you've seen it, you'd be like, oh, it's a bit far-fetched. So she's running for her life. She comes across another trailer, a double trailer, I think they said. She barges in, and she calls the police. The police come out. Obviously, it's quite far-fetched. But, sorry, when she'd released herself back at their home, before Cindy got to her, she'd phoned 911. Sorry. I wouldn't have told up if I hadn't forgot that. But she phones 911, she escapes. So the police have got a record of the first 911 call. Sorry, it's 999 in England. And when they come to see this girl and what she's saying and the state of her, they tie it up with the first 911 call they got, and because don't forget, she doesn't know where she is. She's been drugged. She's very fuzzy-minded, but they trace it back to his house, and when they get there, you see the footage. It's a mess, absolute mess in there. Just all the worst contraptions you can think of. This is in the main house. This isn't even in the toy box. This is the main house. And they're very shocked. They're like, this girl's telling the truth. So they go to try and find David Parker, right? And they find David and Cindy driving along the highway looking for Cynthia. Now, what they say, they admit they're looking for her. They admit they tied her up because she's got a 5-foot chain attached to her. But what they say is she's their friend. She was a heroin addict, and they were keeping her tied up to get her through the withdrawal process. Really? With all them contraptions in the house as well? What were they for? Obviously not believed at all. But what it comes back to is when they're searching the property, because they can see this isn't new. This collection he's got, especially when they find the toy box and you see footage of them going in. He didn't start this yesterday. This has been going on a long time. And it turns out when this is obviously televised, it's a huge thing once it's made public. They find a tape and it's got on there a girl also tied up. She's got her eyes are duct taped, her mouth's duct taped, so it's hard to make her out. But she's got a very distinctive tattoo in this video. And when they release this to the public, it turns out that in 1996, 3 years previous to this, so this was 1999, 1996, there was a girl called Kelly Garrett, and she'd had an argument with her husband. She goes to the pub. She lives in Truth and Consequences as well. Goes to a bar. She knows Jesse Ray. And she's out with her pals, but slowly they all kind of drift off. But she hasn't been drinking. She didn't go out to drink. And she said she bought a beer then, her first one, walks her friends home, comes back. So she's left her beer unattended, comes back and finishes off her beer. And she says everything became very fuzzy then. So Jessie offered to take her to a friend's house. She couldn't find her friend's house. So Jessie's like, I'll bring you back to my dad's. 3 days later, she finds herself on the side of the highway in the same clothes she had on 3 days previous, not remembering what's happened in those 3 days. Someone picks her up and brings her back to her mother-in-law's house. She's obviously very bruised. She's badly hurt. She's bleeding. But no one believes her. Nobody believes her because she can't verbalise what's happened to her, because she's been drugged up for so long. She couldn't say what had happened. And her husband, because they'd had a fight, didn't believe it. And he divorced her. He divorced this woman, thinking she'd been out for 3 days messing around. And obviously when she seen the tape with her tattoo on, she said bits started coming back to her. It's still not the full 3 days by any means, but little bits were coming back to her. And she remembered the tape I mentioned where I read the transcripts. She remembers the tape being played while she was in the toy box. And basically what he used to do, rather than having to converse with his victims, he would play this tape. And like I say, it was just devastating. You could see when she was talking about it, it was just, and the beginning of it is, hello, bitch. Just like, you're nothing, you're an animal. You're not even an animal. Now, that happened. She couldn't remember. So she tried to move on with her life. There was also another girl called Angelica Montano. Very similar case to Kerry. When the story came out with Cynthia Virgil, the girl who escaped, Angelica came forward to say, I think this happened to me too. And so these 3 women came forward. Obviously the one they caught anyway is when they caught them all, but the other 2 women came forward. And from there, that's when it came out that there was possibly not only a lot more victims, but women would have been killed as well and gotten rid of. And this area where they were, there was a huge, not even lake, what would you call it? Just a huge area of water where they said there's no way they could actually search it all. Well, Dennis Yancey, the friend who was involved in all of this sick behaviour, he said that he had a ride with his ex-girlfriend a couple of years beforehand and brought her to David to do what he wanted with her. And it was always around the 3-4 day mark. It's like he got bored. He does say that on the tape, I get bored after that amount of time. I want to look for somebody else then. So it does say on the tape, I want to let you go. I just want to do this to you and let you go. But if you upset me or you upset your mistress being either his girlfriend, Cindy, or his daughter, Jessie, I'll have to kill you. So Dennis Yancey said that after he'd finished with his girlfriend, he had no more use for her, that he strangled her. Dennis did, and they both got rid of her body. But when this was going on, David Parker Rice says, I do this all the time. I have to get rid of some, if they're being too loud or they're not doing what they're told. So yes, it's said that there could have been actually up to 60 victims of him. So that's why he's called a serial killer. The shows on him are the world's worst serial killers. Even though there's no proof of him actually killing anybody, that's how bad this man was. It didn't even need to be found. It was just obvious from the tapes, from what they found, it just wasn't proven. So in court, there was 3 separate cases against David. The first one being obviously Cynthia Vigil. Second one was Kelly Garrett. Angelica Montano, unfortunately, she actually died before it was brought to trial, so that one couldn't continue. But Dennis Yancey, because of killing his ex-girlfriends, and helping David with everything, he got 2 15-year terms. So we got 30 years. He was released in 2015, I believe, around that time, but he breached his parole, so he actually won't be due for release till 2021. Cindy Hendy, who was the girlfriend, don't forget, and involved in a lot of this abuse of these women, she got 36 years, but she actually released in 2019, so she's been released in July this year. Jesse Ray now, David, to save his daughter, said, look, I'll plead guilty. I'll plead guilty to Cynthia and Kelly, all charges, if you let my daughter go. And so basically, all she got, because it was a plea deal, she got 2.5 years and 5 years probation. That was it. Now, David himself got 224 years. This is what I'm saying. This is how disgusting this case was. And I haven't been able to get across to you just how sick this guy was, how sick they all were, what these poor women went through. It's just, you wouldn't try. You can't even say you treat an animal that way. You wouldn't. So 224 years. But he died of a heart attack before he'd done 1 day. He'd got convicted. He was being taken to a station. There was something not long after he was sentenced. And yeah, he didn't do a day of time. So the only one who's actually still in prison after all this was Dennis Yancey. He's Dennis Yancey, should I say. And he'll be out in 2 years. This crime, honestly, I don't know if you can tell, I've just found it really hard because these poor women, they thought that Jessie and Cindy, Cindy, it said was crazy. She was a sadistic woman anyway. She was on the run from a cocaine deal that had gone wrong somewhere else in America, so she'd done a run here. You know, it was said that she was any little girl. You see photos of her. She's a quite petite girl, but she could take on 250-pound women. She'd been seen to knock out blokes. You know, really, really classy girl. And her and David just gravitated towards each other because of they were just sick together. And she was involved in this. But I think the worst one, the one that got me, was the fact that his daughter was the mistress being spoken about on the tape. You will satisfy your mistress as well as me. You know, anytime she wants it, you will satisfy. You won't scream. You'll just do as you're told. I mean, if you do want to hit, like, some of the tapes are played on the program I'm talking about, and then there is like a transcript of the whole 5 minutes, and it's just when you think you've read as low as a person can go, it gets worse. It gets worse, and especially the dog comment. The dogs, he built a contraption so he could even get his dogs in for, it's awful. I just didn't know a lot about this case. And then the more and more I've looked at it, the more sickening it is. And the fact that he didn't do a year of time, considering there's a chance he could have killed up to 60 women, they're saying, that have gone missing. You know, there's no proof of where they've gone. And he got away with it. His daughter got away with it. They all basically got away with it. Like I say, even the other fellow will be out in 2 years. It's just it's a very different story to what I'm used to doing. It really is. But I just thought there's such evil people out there. There really are. But yeah, that's my story of the opinion of version. Oh, I'm messing up. I'm sorry. This one has just kind of really got me, because in the back of my head, I know what I've read. And it's quite traumatizing to think that these women went through it and they had to listen to what was going to happen to them before it happened. It's just terrible. But yeah, that's the toy box killer. But no words at all. But thank you so much for joining me. I've had quite a few comments today, which I really appreciate. So thank you. I do try and come back to all my comments. And yeah, just thank you so much for joining me again. Like I said, I've got a new setup, so I'm hoping my videos will be a little bit more regular. And yeah, I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.